Let me introduce myself. Hi, my name is Evie Leroux. Um, it's good to see all of you guys and watch your videos. Um, Based on my background of the intentions of decolonizing education through a creative approach, I'm going to kind of make some comments going down this article. So the article I chose what is called a decolonial alternative to critical approaches to multicultural, intercultural teacher education. I chose this article obviously because I am pursuing a pathway that is trying to decolonize curriculum. The article is by Michael Vavras. He starts out by defining what multiculturalism is and what it's not. And particularly, he notes that before this disruption in pedagogy, he claims that one's individual right was assimilated into this concept of a common national culture. And as we know in the US, that he's meaning a white Eurocentric colonial culture. He then points out that the intentions of multiculturalism is to advocate recognition of different cultural groups and distribute materials and opportunities for historically marginalized people throughout the critical social construction. So obviously, what he's gearing at, or what Grant and Sleater are getting at, is questioning the role of where all of your information is coming from, and providing materials and opportunities that the individual from a different culture can relate and identify with. He also points out that in the US, we call it multiculturalism. In other parts of the world, they call it interculturalism. So I'm looking down this article, and I read most teacher education programs report that they incorporate multicultural content. And although that may be true, there generally isn't any standards by the administration or anything else declaring like what or how that should be distributed, what that looks like. And it could be very skewed in the concept that it is implemented into the classroom. So that that triggers a little bit of a red flag for me. Okay, so Gloria Ladin Billings is known for being the one to kind of initiate this concept of culturally responsive pedagogy. And she argues against the dominant ideologies that currently exist, the white, Eurocentric, heterosexual patriarchy, to allow for an appropriate multicultural discourse to happen, in which diversity discourse disrupts the original intentions and allows for a pedagogy of liberation and social justice. Okay, so there's a lot of controversy around who should be teaching these theories and concepts inside the classroom. The basic identity is that we want to just not have the walls of the classroom teaching education for our students. We want to bring the outside in, or create this third space. And we want to be able to give identity and connection to the marginalized student, and have them realize that they do have a historical right and background that they are connected to, and that, you know, they can make appropriate choices and they can be successful. But that being said, you know, can a white teacher appropriately be able to provide multicultural pathways and opportunities for a marginalized student? And this is a heavy hitter, specifically with the Indigenous community. Okay, so my ultimate question is where's the line? So I am proposing to develop a arts integrated decolonized curriculum, but do I have the right as a white cisgender woman to be able to write it? And do I have the rights to be able to provide these opportunities by myself in the classroom? I think those are like the biggest hot topics. And it goes the same for culturally responsive teaching, culturally sustaining pedagogies, culturally sustaining, revitalizing pedagogies, and decolonizing education. So obviously the answer is no, I cannot write a decolonized curriculum by myself. I have to do, it is a collaborative work that I have to acknowledge my own positionality for. And I can be a part of the problem, but I certainly cannot be the solution alone. What is the role of culturally responsive teaching? I think the biggest factor is to bring about awareness to the traditional colonial models of teaching, to kind of disrupt and tear them down and allow for a better understanding of what is possible in education, and the role of the teacher and the role of the student, and how the student can access information. The expectation for culturally responsive teachers is to design learning environments that allow students to use cultural elements, cultural capital, and other recognizable knowledge from their experiences to learn new content and information to enhance their schooling experiences and academic success. This absolutely needs to happen, but if the proper training is not provided for the teacher, and if the teacher does not go about it in a community level, in a community response way, where they then give over the power to the student to be able to create those connections, it's recolonizing and reinstating the original problem. You can train a teacher to be culturally responsive, but if the curriculum does not allow for these opportunities to exist as an environment, then these are all just words, not actions, that are happening within the classroom. Can we transition and turn an already existing colonized structure and mode of learning into this critical form of activism? You know, is it possible, or do we need to just, tear it down and start from scratch? And this particular statement, the United Nations documented the effects of contemporary education as a way of indoctrinating Indigenous youth with a dominant culture while denying them access to their Indigenous culture. I think that sums up the problem with our education today very distinctly and clearly. And so this goes back to my original point of, where are the intentions, and can a white person really instruct multiculturalism or decolonizing education? Because multiculturalism and education are rooted in Western ways of interpreting the world. And so, with this fear of recolonizing, Amon cautions that interculturality in the West may reproduce coloniality by appealing to modern means as a means of achieving global tolerance. What's the solution? And here we go. With substantive collaboration between governmental officials and indigenous and non-indigenous decolonial educators, um, a more accurate representation of indigenous cultures, histories, and identities in the school curriculum can occur. Um, and that's really what I'm trying to push for. That's what I'm trying to create. We are still so ingrained in our white colonial model, that it's this approach that we're trying to incorporate and bring these multicultural attributes into the curriculum. Whereas the New Zealand teacher program, it is all collaborated together. It almost has this translanguaging effect, that the Māori culture influences the white culture in New Zealand, and they can coexist together, but they need each other to explain itself, to fully kind of embrace this new higher identity of being together and understanding each other's cultures. We're not there yet here. We're not even close to that. So I think that that's one of the main struggles that I have with reading, the approach of how to train teachers um, to implement these strategies within the classroom. Is it more of just a pedagogy and a way of knowing, or is praxis possible? It's interesting to note here in New Mexico, we have been a bilingual state since 1973, and yet we are still heavily operating on a Eurocentric um, colonial model of teaching. Um, even even if even if the state has like promoted these different things, are they really being accessed and used within the schools and within the curriculum that make up these teaching approaches? So, with this paper, and it giving kind of this global approach to decolonizing education, and particular providing teacher education and strategies in the classroom to bring about Indigenous education, what I see is that we have all of these great resources and responses. I am not confident enough that we are actually preparing our teachers to be able to provide these spaces and opportunities for our students, because I think we are limited with the pre-existing curriculum. Teacher education approaches that incorporate critical multiculturalism and decolonialism can serve the development of teachers who can work alongside historically marginalized young people, regardless of their specific socially produced identities, to resist and overcome the oppression of these students regularly experienced in and out of schools. I firmly believe that this is possible within all of our methodologies of disrupting the system and providing a multicultural, culturally responsive, culturally sustaining, revitalizing, and decolonizing approach for our students. I just hope that the teacher preparation also includes so much positionality and self-work, and that we address how the current curriculum or structure is set up, and that needs to be addressed first.